Hi everybody, welcome to Saturday Live at the Backyard Bird Center and also Mark's Backyard Birds. I have an old video out there and somebody pointed out to me that it is awful. The video's grainy, the sound is terrible, and it was about suet. So this is a kind of a updated version of an old video that I did a long time ago about suet and the things that you should know about suet, and also kind of how and my thoughts on presenting suet. So what is suet? Suet is the internal body cavity fat from a cow, mainly around the kidneys, but inside the body cavity fat. And it is not meat trimmings off of a steak or things like that. It's very clean, it's brittle, it breaks if you see it in its natural form in its chunks. And of course, for suet cakes, they melt those down or render it down, if you will, and melt it down. And then the different formulas of suet cakes, they mix in other items with it. And that's the first distinction I want to get into about the truth about suet, is a cheap suet cake and a quality seed cake. Suet cake, sorry. Cheap suet cakes have a bunch of bird seed in them, and they dump that in there because it takes up the space of the beef fat, which is more expensive than the cheap bird seed, and so it lowers the cost of that suet cake for the manufacturer. So, but what it does for a consumer is it has more waste in it, and it has stuff that's not so good for birds. Like a lot of that seed, because it's coated with that beef fat, will pass right through a bird and not get digested. And there's, you can look at it and see the difference. I've got different cakes here, and you look at the back, and in there you see a lot of millet seed or cracked corn or even some sunflower seeds in there, versus a quality seed cake and you don't see bird seed. So when you're choosing a suet cake, look for a quality cake that doesn't have a cheap bag of bird seed in it. And you can also read the ingredients, and it should tell you on there that whether if it's just got peanuts and tree nuts in it. Yes, peanut treat is our best seller, and I think it's the best cake. So that's number one. Yes, you can buy cheap suet cakes, but again, you're not getting what the birds really desire, and also you're not getting what's best for the birds. Remember, in winter, especially in cold weather months, suet is a nutritional substitute for insects for them. There are a lot eating of that. But over the years, we've seen that the suet continues to be eaten well into the summer now, especially in June, and so we still sell a lot of suet cakes now. If you fed suet or you're real familiar with it, wait a minute, Mark, when the temperatures get high, that beef fat starts to melt and it gets ooey and it's nasty. Yes, when it gets really hot, like gets in the 80s, your suet cakes will start to get rancid on you. They'll get that black coating on them. They'll start to ooze and they're nasty. So there's two options there. One, I have some people who continue to use the high-fat versions all summer because they say their suet cakes don't last long enough. They just go through it and they don't have time to get ooey and get. But most of us, the suet cake's going to last for a while. So you look for the drier, doughy formulas. This is in the C&S company. They use the word delight to signify their doughy formulas, or no melt summer formulas, and this is what most people feed starting in May or so, whenever the temperatures get really warm, and feed during the summer. And then in the fall, when the weather cools off again, then they switch back to the higher fat, which are probably better for the birds anyways, because they have the higher fat content in the fall and the winter months and into the early spring. And C&S calls those treats. Now, different companies have different names for them, but it's always important to look if it says no melt on it, because that will tell you how it is prepared by the company and the fat content in it. But a higher fat content is what the birds are looking for, and is better for them, and especially in the winter months whenever they're not getting many insects, and so they eat those. So how do you present suet? Many different ways. Of course, the the traditional suet cages that we have behind us. We have, there's fancy ones and there's simple ones, which is just a cage, and they can be placed on the sides of bird feeders. Some people suspend them underneath because the starlings really like them. But the one suet feeders that we sell a lot of are the tail prop suet feeders, which woodpeckers especially use their tail as a kickstand, and that way they can hold, and they use their stiff tail feathers on woodpeckers, and it helps them to be able to hammer, and so they like that. It's not necessary. They'll feed out of these and they'll bend around and things, but the tail props really do help them. And we of course got big ones for the big woodpeckers like flickers and pileated as well. So and then you mentioned starlings. Starlings are a real problem. They love the suet, especially in the dead of winter when it's brutal. For that, you'll want an upside down suet feeder. You can try that because starlings can't hang upside down. I've got whole videos on those. We can put a link in there for that. So suet, people feed it all year round now. A lot of people just feed it in the winter, but more and more people feed it all year round. So there's the truth about how to separate between a cheap cake and a high quality cake, and a summer formula versus a winter high fat formula. There's different kinds of suet feeders that the woodpeckers, chickadees, titmice, nuthatches, a lot of the birds love to eat the suet. So that's an updated version of The Truth About Suet. Great idea for a program. Thanks for watching today. Give us a like, give us a share, send in ideas for future programs. Until then, come on, let's talk birds.